On Christmas morning, my daughter called and said, "Dad, maybe it would be better for my paralyzed mother to stay home with you." I didn't argue, said okay, and stayed with my wife for a quiet Christmas together. We enjoyed the peace and quiet. But the next morning, my phone exploded. 84 missed calls from my daughter. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. The pot roast was almost done when I heard Tracy's voice drift from the living room. Not loud, but clear enough. Something about retitling the house in early January. I stood at the kitchen doorway, wooden spoon still in my hand, and listened. "The old man's going to kick the bucket soon anyway," Tracy said into his phone. His back was to me, feet up on my coffee table like he owned the place. "And that vegetable in the wheelchair doesn't understand anything anymore." That vegetable, he meant Diana, my wife of 42 years. My daughter Ashley laughed, not nervously, not uncomfortably. She actually laughed. "Just make sure the paperwork's ready," she told him. "I want this done before he can change his mind about anything." Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. Like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark. I walked in with the plate still warm from the oven, and smiled. "Dinner's ready. Hope you two are hungry." The transformation was instant. Tracy dropped his feet, pocketed his phone. Ashley's face went from calculating to concerned daughter in half a second. She rushed over to take the plates from me. "Oh, Dad, you didn't have to cook. We could have ordered something." "You worked so hard," Tracy added, suddenly all concerned. "Taking care of Diana, managing the house. We really appreciate everything you do." I watched them, really watched them. Tracy's smile didn't reach his eyes. Ashley touched my arm, but her fingers were cold. They looked at me the way a used car salesman looks at an elderly couple walking onto the lot. How had I never seen it before? "So, what are the Christmas plans?" I asked, setting the plates down. My voice was steady, cheerful. "Even, you two going anywhere special?" Ashley exchanged a glance with Tracy. Quick, but I caught it. "Actually, we were thinking of having a big celebration here, you know, with Tracy's family." "Really, make it festive." "Sounds wonderful," I said. "Diana will love that." Another glance between them. This time, Tracy's jaw tightened. "Well," Ashley said carefully, "we weren't sure if Mum would be comfortable with all the people. The noise, you know how she gets, as if Diana's stroke had made her a problem to be managed, rather than a person to be loved." "Of course," I said, "whatever you think is best." I left them there, and went to check on Diana. She was in our bedroom, propped up in her specialized bed, watching the evening news. When I came in, she looked at me with those sharp eyes that had never dimmed. Not even after the stroke stole half her body. She knew something was wrong. She always knew. I sat on the edge of the bed, and took her good hand. She squeezed back, asking a question without words. "It's fine," I told her. But we both knew I was lying. That night, after Ashley and Tracy had gone to bed, in what used to be the guest room, but was now apparently their permanent residence, I lay next to Diana in the dark. She made a small sound, the kind that meant she was asking if I was okay. "I heard them today," I whispered. "Talking about the house, about you, about me dying." Diana's breath hitched. Her good hand found mine under the blanket. "They think I'm stupid," I continued. The words came easier in the darkness. "They think I don't notice how they look at us. How they've stopped pretending to care about anything except what they'll inherit." 3 years since Diana's stroke, and I'd been so focused on her care, on physical therapy schedules and medication routines and wheelchair accessibility, that I'd missed the other transformation happening in my own home. My daughter turning into a stranger. My son-in-law turning my house into his personal ATM. The wooden spoon incident felt almost funny now. There I was, stirring pot roast, like some clueless sitcom dad, while my own flesh and blood plotted to take everything. If this were a movie, the audience would be screaming at the screen, "Turn around, you idiot. Can't you see what they're doing?" But this wasn't a movie. This was my life. Our life. And I'd been sleepwalking through it. Diana made another sound. Stronger this time. It was the noise she made when she was angry. When the limitations of her body frustrated her beyond words. She was telling me she'd noticed, too. Maybe she'd been trying to tell me for months, and I'd been too blind to see it. I thought about the 42 years Diana and I had built together. The house we'd saved for, paid off, made into a home. The retirement accounts I'd carefully grown during my years selling medical equipment, knowing we'd need security in our old age. The life insurance policy I'd maintained religiously, thinking I was protecting my family's future. Apparently, I'd been protecting Ashley and Tracy's future. And they couldn't even wait for me to die before trying to claim it. Vegetable. I whispered into the dark. He called you a vegetable. Diana's grip tightened on my hand. Even with half her body frozen, her strength was there. Her mind was there. She was there, fully present, while my daughter and son-in-law sat in my living room, treating her like furniture to be moved out of the way. Something crystallized in that moment. I'd spent 40 years in medical sales. I knew how to read people, how to find their pressure points, how to close a deal. I'd been one of the best in my region because I understood human nature, greed, need, desperation. I understood it because I'd sold to it. Why had I forgotten that, when it came to my own family? The digital clock on Diana's nightstand glowed to 47 a.m. somewhere down the hall. Tracy snored. Ashley probably slept soundly, dreaming of new furniture catalogs for her house. I lay there holding my wife's hand, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt something besides exhaustion and resignation. I felt awake. Sleep didn't come that night. How could it? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Tracy's voice. The old man's going to kick the bucket soon anyway. Funny thing about being called old. You never feel old inside. In my head, I was still 35. Still the guy who could close a 6F Figueroa medical equipment deal over a steak dinner and drinks. The gray hair and reading glasses were just props. A disguise that apparently worked too well. I thought about Ashley, my little girl, my princess. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike in this very driveway. She must have been 6, maybe 7. She kept falling, skinning her knees, crying. But every time she'd get back up again, "Daddy," she'd say, "I can do it." When did that fierce little girl turn into the woman in my living room, laughing while her husband called her mother a vegetable? Diana shifted beside me. The movement was small, restricted by her condition, but it brought me back to the present. I turned my head to look at her profile in the darkness. Even now, after everything, she was beautiful to me. We'd met at a hospital fundraiser in 1982. She was a nurse. I was a junior sales rep trying to land my first big account. She'd caught me stumbling through a pitch to the head of procurement and had later pulled me aside. "You're trying too hard," she'd said. "Just be honest about what you're selling. People can smell desperation." Best advice I ever got. I'd used it to build a career. We'd used it to build a life. She'd been right about a lot of things. About Tracy, for instance. When Ashley first brought him home 10 years ago, Diana had whispered to me later, "Watch his eyes when Ashley talks about her trust fund." I'd laughed it off. "She doesn't have a trust fund, honey. She has parents who love her." "Exactly," Diana had said. "But he thinks she does." I should have listened then. I should have listened to a lot of things. The wedding had cost me $43,000. Ashley wanted everything perfect. The venue, the flowers, the band. "It's my special day, Daddy," she'd said. And what was I supposed to do? Say no to those eyes that still reminded me of the 6-year-old, learning to ride a bike? Tracy had contributed exactly nothing. "Tight month," he'd said with that car salesman's smile. "But man, I really appreciate this. Ron, you're the best father-in-law a guy could ask for." The best ATM, he meant. I thought about last Thanksgiving. Ashley had called the morning of, her voice bright and cheerful. "Hey Dad, so Tracy's family is doing this big thing at his brother's place. Would you and Mom mind if we went there instead? I mean, Mom doesn't really enjoy big gatherings anymore anyway, right?" Diana had been dressed and ready, sitting in her wheelchair by the window, waiting. I'd had to tell her we'd be spending Thanksgiving alone. The look on her face, that crushing disappointment she tried to hide, had nearly broken me. But I'd made excuses. Ashley was building a relationship with her husband's family. That was natural, healthy. Even now I understood. It wasn't about Tracy's family. It was about not wanting to deal with the woman in the wheelchair. The woman who'd given Ashley life. Who'd sat up with her through every fever and nightmare. Who'd worked double shifts to help pay for her college. The vegetable. That's all Diana was to them now. An inconvenience. Then there was the wheelchair incident. I'd been in the garage 3 months ago when Tracy had come in. Phone pressed to his ear, talking to someone. "Yeah, the old lady's chair is always in the way." He'd laughed. "Takes up half the living room. Can't wait to clear out some of this clutter." Diana's wheelchair was cluttered. I'd stood there hidden behind my workbench, listening to him talk about my wife like she was a broken appliance. He couldn't wait to haul to the dump. And I'd done nothing. Said nothing. Just gone inside, and helped Diana with her evening medication like nothing had happened. Why? Why had I let it slide? Because I'd been tired. Because Diana's care was exhausting. Because it was easier to ignore the small cruelties than confront them. Because they were family, and family forgives. Except they weren't treating us like family. They were treating us like obstacles between them and their inheritance. I thought about the last 2 years. Really thought about it. Ashley and Tracy had moved in temporarily 18 months ago, just until we save up for a down payment. Ashley had said, "It would help us so much, Dad, and we can help you with Mom." Their help consisted of Tracy occasionally bringing in groceries he expected me to pay for, and Ashley sometimes sitting with Diana while she scrolled through her phone, not speaking, not engaging, just present in the most minimal way possible. Meanwhile, they'd taken over the guest room, the garage, the TV room. They ate our food, used our utilities. And Tracy had even started parking his truck in what had been Diana's spot in the driveway. "She doesn't drive anymore," he'd said when I'd mentioned it, as if that made it okay. I thought about the furniture catalogs I'd seen Ashley looking at last week. "Just browsing," she'd said when she caught me watching. "Planning for when we finally get our own place." Our own place, right? She'd been planning for when this became her place. When the old man kicked the bucket, and the vegetable got shipped off to some facility. The really insidious thing was how gradual it had been. Not one big betrayal, but 1,000 tiny ones. Death by paper cuts, each small enough to excuse, to overlook, to forgive. But added together, they formed a picture I could no longer ignore. Diana made a soft noise. I looked over to find her watching me in the pre-dawn light, starting to filter through the curtains. Her good hand reached for my face, touched my cheek. Her eyes asked the question, "What are we going to do?" And something in me shifted, settled, hardened. For 3 years, since Diana's stroke, I'd been in survival mode, just getting through each day. Focused on therapy appointments and medication schedules, and keeping Diana comfortable. I'd let everything else slide, including my own spine. But lying there, in that moment, I remembered something. I'd built a career on understanding human nature, on strategy, on knowing when to push and when to wait, on finding leverage and using it. I'd been a closer, one of the best. Maybe it was time to close one more deal. "We're going to be fine," I whispered to Diana. "I promise you, we're going to be fine." And for the first time in a very long time, I meant it. The next morning, I made them breakfast. Scrambled eggs, bacon, toast. Ashley came down first, yawning, her phone already in her hand. "Morning, Dad," she said, barely looking up from her screen. "Morning, sweetheart." I set a plate in front of her. "Sleep well." She was scrolling through something. Instagram, probably planning her next post about what a devoted daughter she was. Tracy appeared a few minutes later, grabbed coffee without a word of thanks, and sprawled in what used to be my chair at the kitchen table. I stood at the counter, eating my own breakfast, watching them. Really watching them. It was remarkable once you knew what to look for. The way Ashley's eyes flicked to the kitchen remodel magazines I'd left on the counter. The way Tracy's gaze lingered on the property tax statement that had arrived yesterday. They were already mentally redecorating, already calculating values. "So, Dad," Ashley said, putting down her phone. Here it came. The performance. "Tracy and I were thinking we should really help you more around here. You do so much for Mom, and we feel terrible that we're not contributing enough." Tracy nodded, his face arranged in what he probably thought was sincere concern. "Absolutely. In fact, we were thinking maybe we should start handling some of the financial stuff. Take that burden off your shoulders. The bills, the accounts, let you focus on Diana." I smiled, kept my voice pleasant. "That's very thoughtful, but I've got it under control." "But Dad," Ashley leaned forward, "you're not getting any younger. What if something happens to you? We should know where everything is, how everything works, just in case." Just in case. Translation. Just in case I die, and they need immediate access to my assets. "I appreciate the concern," I said, "but everything's organized. My lawyer has all the documents." Tracy's jaw tightened. "Just a fraction. Your lawyer. You've been seeing a lawyer." "Routine stuff," I said. "Estate planning. Making sure everything's in order. You know how it is at my age." I watched Ashley and Tracy exchange a look. Nervous this time. They didn't like the word lawyer. Lawyers complicated things. Lawyers asked questions. Lawyers created paperwork that might not go their way. "Well," Ashley said carefully, "you tell us if you were making any big decisions, right? We're family. We should be involved." Family. The word tasted bitter coming from her mouth. "Of course," I lied. "Now, eat up before it gets cold." Over the next few days, I became a student of their habits. I'd spent 40 years learning to read clients, understanding what motivated them, what scared them, what they wanted but wouldn't say out loud. Now, I turned those skills on my own daughter and Sonny. I noticed how Tracy disappeared to the garage several times a day to take phone calls. One afternoon, I happened to walk past just as he was shoving papers into his truck's glove compartment. The papers had a casino logo in the corner. When he saw me, He slammed the compartment shut, with a smile that didn't quite work. "Just clearing out some junk," he said. "Good idea," I replied. "Never know what might pile up. Like gambling debts." I thought, like the kind of debt that makes a man desperate enough to scheme about inheritance from his wife's parents while they're still breathing. I noticed how Ashley spent hours online shopping, filling virtual carts with furniture, decor, electronics, expensive things for a house she didn't own yet. She'd see me watching and quickly close the tabs, but not before I caught glimpses of the totals. Thousands, tens of thousands. "Just window shopping," she'd say with a laugh. "Of course," I'd reply. On Friday, Patricia, our home health aide who came 3 times a week, arrived for Diana's afternoon care. Patricia was in her 50s, had kind eyes, and no patience for nonsense. She'd been coming for 8 months, and Diana adored her. While Patricia was helping Diana with her exercises, I made tea in the kitchen. Ashley was there on her phone as usual. "Your dad's so devoted," Patricia said as she came in for Diana's afternoon medications. "Not every husband would be so hands-on with care." "Oh, definitely," Ashley said. "Dad's always been like that. We are so lucky." Patricia filled Diana's water bottle, then paused. "You know, I have to say, Mrs. Parker is doing really well with her mobility exercises. She's got great spirit." She glanced at Ashley. "Does she still enjoy getting out?" "Sometimes a change of scenery helps with morale." Ashley's face went blank for a second. "Oh, well, it's so hard with the wheelchair, getting her in and out of the car, finding accessible places. It's just complicated. I've seen families manage much more difficult situations," Patricia said mildly. "My other client's family takes him to the park twice a week. He loves it." Ashley's phone suddenly demanded her attention. "That's great for them. Every situation is different though." Patricia gave me a look that said everything. She'd worked with enough families to know the difference between can't and won't. After she left, I went to sit with Diana. She was tired from the exercises, but alert. I took her hand. "Patricia mentioned taking you out more," I said quietly. "Would you like that?" Diana's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. "When's the last time Ashley took you anywhere?" I asked, though I knew the answer. Diana held up her good hand, made a 0 with her fingers. "Never. In 18 months of living in our house, Ashley had never once taken her mother out. Not to a park, not to a store, not anywhere." That evening, our neighbor Susan Cole stopped by with some homemade cookies. Susan was 71, sharp as ever, and had lived next door for 20 years. She'd known Ashley since she was in high school. "Ron," she said quietly when Tracy and Ashley were out of earshot, "I don't mean to pry, but is everything okay?" "Fine," I said. "Why do you ask?" Susan hesitated. "I ran into Tracy at the grocery store last week. He was talking to someone about changes coming soon. New ownership," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you weren't planning to move without saying goodbye." New ownership. Tracy was already telling the neighbors. "No plans to move," I said carefully. "But thank you for asking." Susan patted my arm. "You're a good man, Ron. And Diana's lucky to have you. Just be careful." "Okay." After she left, I stood in my living room looking at the house Diana and I had built together, literally built. We had renovated the kitchen ourselves in 1995. I'd installed those shelves in the den. Diana had painted every bedroom, chosen every fixture, and Tracy was telling neighbors about new ownership. I went to my study, the one room in the house Ashley and Tracy never entered. It was still mine, filled with my books, my records, my memories. I pulled out a leather notebook and started writing. Dates, times, conversations, the casino papers in Tracy's truck, Ashley's shopping carts, Patricia's observations, Susan's warning, every detail documented. I'd spent 40 years in sales. I knew the value of documentation. Every successful deal, every big close came down to having the right information at the right time. You didn't wing it. You prepared, you planned, you built your case. At the bottom of the page, I wrote 2 words: George Kennedy. George was a family attorney I'd met through the medical community years ago. We'd had lunch a few times, traded stories. He specialized in elder law, estate planning. He'd given me his card once, said to call if I ever needed anything. It was time to make that call. Monday morning, December 22nd. I told Ashley and Tracy I had a doctor's appointment. "Want me to come with you?" Ashley asked, not looking up from her phone. "No need, just routine blood work. You know how it is." Tracy barely grunted acknowledgement. He was already planning his day. Probably. Maybe another trip to the casino. Maybe another call with whoever was helping him plot the house transfer. George Kennedy's office was in downtown Austin, a modest suite in a professional building. The receptionist showed me in immediately. George stood to greet me. Mid-50s, with silver hair, and the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every family nightmare there was. "Ron Parker," he said, shaking my hand. "Good to see you again, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Your message sounded urgent." "It is," I said, "but let's call it a hypothetical situation for now." George nodded slowly. "Hypothetical. Of course. Tell me about this hypothetical." I laid it out methodically, unemotionally, the way I used to present proposals to hospital administrators. "Here are the facts. Here's the situation. Here's what we're dealing with. A man, 67, with a wife who had a stroke. Their adult daughter and son-in-law living in their home. The overheard conversation about retitling the house. The gambling debts. The subtle manipulation. The neglect of the disabled wife." George listened without interrupting, his expression neutral. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Hypothetically," he said, "if this man died tomorrow, what would happen? His daughter would inherit everything, and the wife would be at the daughter's mercy." George's jaw tightened. "I see this too often, Ron. Adult children who view their parents as assets to be liquidated, rather than people to be loved. Especially when one parent is vulnerable." "Hypothetically," I said, "what options does this man have?" George leaned back in his chair. "Several, actually. In Texas, we have strong protections for vulnerable adults and their spouses. The question is, how aggressive you want to be. I want my wife protected. I want to ensure she has care and dignity for the rest of her life, regardless of what happens to me. And I want it done in a way that can't be challenged, manipulated, or undone. Then we're talking about an irrevocable trust." George pulled out a legal pad. "It's exactly what it sounds like. Once established, it cannot be altered or dissolved. You'd transfer your assets into the trust. Diana would be the primary beneficiary. You'd name a professional trustee to manage it. Your daughter couldn't touch it, couldn't challenge it, couldn't manipulate it. What about the house? That can go into the trust. Or you could sell it. Use the proceeds to establish a fund for Diana's care. Either way, you control what happens. And if they tried to claim I was coerced, that I wasn't of sound mind." George smiled grimly. "That's why we document everything. Medical evaluation confirming your competency. Video recording of the signing. Witnesses. We make it bulletproof." He paused. "But Ron, this is a big step. It will effectively disinherit your daughter. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Ashley laughing while Tracy called her mother a vegetable. I thought about the furniture catalogs, the casino debts, the 18 months of neglect disguised as help. "Yes," I said, "I'm prepared." We spent the next hour going through details. Asset values, insurance policies, bank accounts. The house appraised at around $450,000. My retirement savings, my pension, all of it documented and discussed. "I'll need a few days to draw up the paperwork," George said. "Given the timeline you mentioned, we can fast-track this. Can you come back Wednesday?" "Wednesday works. And Ron, be careful. If your daughter suspects something, she might try to accelerate her own plans. Don't give her any reason to think you're taking action." "I won't," I said. "I've spent 40 years keeping poker faces during negotiations. I can manage a few more days." I left George's office with my mind clearer than it had been in years. For the first time since Diana's stroke, I wasn't just reacting, surviving, enduring. I was planning, acting, taking control. On the drive home, I stopped at Best Buy, bought a home security system. Nothing fancy, but it had cameras that could record audio and video. The kind of thing a concerned elderly man might buy for safety. The kind of thing that might happen to record interesting conversations. Ashley and Tracy were on the couch when I got home watching TV. They barely looked up when I came in. "How was the doctor?" Ashley asked. "Fine. Everything's fine. Just need to come back for some follow-up tests." "Tests?" Tracy's head turned. "What kind of tests?" "Routine stuff. Blood work. Heart monitoring. You know, at my age, they like to keep an eye on things." "You feeling okay?" Ashley's concern sounded almost genuine. "Never better," I said, which was actually true. "I think I'm going to live a good long while yet." I could have sworn Tracy's face fell a little at that. That evening, while they were out, I installed the cameras. Living room, kitchen, hallway. Small, discreet, easy to miss if you weren't looking for them. And Ashley and Tracy weren't looking. When they came home, Ashley actually commented on the new small devices. "What are those, Dad?" "Security system." I said that robbery 2 blocks over last month had me worried. This way, if anything happens, we've got it recorded. "Smart," Tracy said, not realizing just how smart. That night, I lay next to Diana and told her everything about George, about the trust, about the plan taking shape. Her good hand found mine squeezed hard. "They're going to be angry," I whispered. "When they find out. Really angry." Diana made a sound that might have been a laugh. Her eyes were bright in the darkness. After 3 years of being treated like furniture, she was ready for them to be angry. So was I. I thought about the call I'd have to make, the papers I'd have to sign, the moment when Ashley and Tracy would realize that the weak old man they had been manipulating was several moves ahead of them all along. In sales, we called it the reversal. That moment when the client who thought they were in control suddenly realized they weren't, that you'd seen them coming from a mile away, that while they were planning their pitch, you were already closing the deal. I'd closed deals with hospital executives, procurement directors, competitive salespeople who thought they were smarter than me. I'd always won because I understood one fundamental truth: people underestimate you at their own peril. Ashley and Tracy thought I was weak, tired, grief-stricken, easy to manipulate. They had no idea they'd just underestimated a man who'd built a career on strategy. And that's when I understood exactly how to repay them. Wednesday morning, December 23rd, I told Ashley and Tracy I was going to pick up some last-minute Christmas gifts. "Need help, Dad?" Ashley asked, though her eyes never left her phone screen. "No thanks, sweetheart. I've got it covered." George Kennedy's office was ready. The documents were laid out on his conference table like surgical instruments, precise and purposeful. "This is comprehensive," George said, walking me through each page. "The irrevocable trust transfers all your major assets. The house, your retirement accounts, investment portfolio into a protected vehicle. Diana is the primary beneficiary. I've arranged for Fidelity Trust Management to serve as trustee. They're professionals, no emotional involvement, no way for your daughter to manipulate them." I signed each page. My handwriting was steady, clear, the signature of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "The life insurance policy," George continued, sliding another document across. "You're changing the beneficiary from Ashley to the trust. This ensures Diana's care continues, regardless of what happens to you." More signatures. Each one felt like closing a door Ashley had been trying to pry open. "Now, the house." George pulled out a thinner folder. "I've contacted a realtor, Margaret Chen. Very discreet. She's done a comparative market analysis. Your property, given the location and condition, should list at $450,000. In this market, you'll likely get asking price or higher. How quickly can we list? I'd recommend waiting until after Christmas. Listed December 26th. It'll seem less suspicious, more like a New Year's decision. Plus, it gives the trust time to fully process." I smiled. December 26th, the day after Ashley and Tracy would have their big celebration without us. Perfect timing. "One more thing," George said. "Given what you've told me about potential challenges to your competency, I've arranged for Dr. Patricia Morrison to conduct a full cognitive assessment. She'll be here in an hour. You think of everything. That's what you're paying me for." Dr. Morrison was thorough. Memory tests, logic puzzles, legal comprehension questions. An hour later, she signed a document certifying that I was of sound mind, under no duress, and fully capable of making informed decisions about my estate. "Mr. Parker," she said as we finished, "I've done hundreds of these assessments. You're sharper than most people half your age. Anyone who tries to claim otherwise will have a very difficult time." Back home, I found Tracy in the garage on his phone again. He jumped when I walked in. "Just talking to my brother about Christmas," he said quickly. "Too quickly?" "Of course," I said, looking forward to tomorrow's celebration. His smile was forced. "Yeah, should be great. Big family gathering." I went inside, carrying shopping bags filled with actual Christmas presents. I'd picked up small things for Diana, nothing for Ashley and Tracy. They wouldn't notice anyway. That afternoon, I was gentler than usual. I helped Diana with her exercises, read to her, even suggested we watch her favorite old movie that evening. Ashley and Tracy noticed. "You seem happy, Dad," Ashley said at dinner. "It's nice to see. Just getting into the Christmas spirit," I said. "You know, at my age, you appreciate these holidays more. Never know how many you have left." Tracy actually smiled at that, probably thinking, "Exactly, old man. Not many left at all, if only he knew." That night, Ashley and Tracy went out with friends. I sat with Diana, showed her the documents I'd signed. Her eyes widened as she read through them. The trust, the insurance change, the house listing. Prepared to go. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling, really smiling for the first time in months. "Tomorrow night," I told her, "they're going to call. They're going to uninvite us to Christmas. They're going to say it's too much trouble, too crowded, to something. They've been building up to it all week. Diana nodded. She'd seen it coming, too. And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to agree that we should stay home because I want them to have their perfect Christmas without us. I want them to celebrate and post their pictures and feel like they've won. Diana squeezed my hand, asking the silent question. Why? Because on December 26th, they're going to wake up to a very different world, and I want them to have had one last moment of thinking they got away with it all. December 24th, Christmas Eve. The house was decorated, though mostly by me. Ashley and Tracy were busy getting ready for their party the next day. Tracy's family, his brother, cousins, friends. A big celebration in our house, which they had already mentally claimed as theirs. My phone rang at 7:00 p.m. Ashley. Hey Dad. Her voice had that careful tone, the one she used when she was about to ask for something. So, I've been thinking about tomorrow. Yes, well, Tracy's family is pretty big, and we're expecting about 20 people. The house is going to be packed. And I was thinking, she paused, maybe it would be better if you and Mum just had a quiet day at home. You know, with the wheelchair and everything, it might be overwhelming for her, and honestly for you, too. All that noise and chaos. There it was. The moment I'd been waiting for. I let the silence hang for just a beat. Long enough for her to wonder if I was upset. Then, you know what, Ashley? That's probably a good idea. Your mother and I will be fine here. You enjoy your celebration. Really? She sounded surprised, relieved. You're not upset? Not at all. You're right. It would be a lot. We'll have our own quiet Christmas. Don't worry about us. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. We'll save you some leftovers. She hung up, probably already texting Tracy that the old man bought it. That they had the house to themselves. That everything was going according to plan. I looked at Diana. Her face was set, determined. She understood. This was the last time they'd underestimate us. Tomorrow, I told her, we're going to have the best Christmas we've had in years. Just you and me. And while they're celebrating, I'm going to make a few calls, send a few emails, set everything in motion. Diana's good hand found mine, held tight. We were ready. Christmas morning arrived cold and clear. I woke early, made coffee, sat with Diana as the sun rose. The house was quiet. Ashley and Tracy were still asleep. Would be for hours. They'd gotten in late last night, drunk and laughing, making plans for their big party. I made Diana and me a simple breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit. We ate together in our bedroom, away from the chaos that would soon erupt in the rest of the house. Around 10, Ashley and Tracy emerged. They barely acknowledged us. Busy day, Tracy said, grabbing coffee. Lots to set up. Need any help? I offered, knowing the answer. Nah, we got it, Ashley said. You and Mom, just relax. Stay in your room if you want. Might be quieter. Stay in your room, in our own house, like we were the guests. The inconveniences will do, I said pleasantly. By noon, people started arriving. Tracy's brother, Jake, and his wife, cousins, friends I'd never met. They filled our living room, our kitchen, our dining room. The smell of food, cooking, music playing, laughter echoing through halls. Diana and I had walked for 30 years. We stayed in our bedroom, door closed. I'd set up a small table, decorated it with a cloth napkin and a candle. We had turkey sandwiches and soup. We looked through old photo albums. I read to Diana from her favorite book, Pride and Prejudice. Around 3, Diana started crying. Not sad crying, relief crying. She'd been dreading this day for weeks, expecting to be paraded out like an obligation, pied and ignored. Instead, we were safe together, free. I love you, I told her, holding her hand. We're going to be okay. Better than okay. At 5, I helped Diana with her evening medications, got her settled for a nap. Then, I went to my study, closed the door, and pulled out my phone. First, an email to Margaret Chen, the realtor. Please proceed with listing December 26th as discussed. Second, an email to George Kennedy. Documents signed. Trust established. Please send formal notification letters to all relevant parties on December 26th, 6 a.m. Third, a call to Fidelity Trust Management, confirming they'd received all paperwork and were prepared to assume trustee duties immediately. Everything was in motion like dominoes carefully arranged, ready to fall. I could hear the party through the walls. Ashley's laugh. Tracy's voice probably telling some story, playing the big man in his father-in-law's house. Our house, for now. Around 7, I checked Instagram on my phone. There it was. Ashley's post. A photo of her and Tracy, arms around each other, huge smiles. Surrounded by Tracy's family in our living room. The caption, Best Christmas ever. So grateful for family and this beautiful home. Blessed daughter's family. First, or Christmas magic. This beautiful home. Not my parents' home. Not grateful to dad and mom. Just this beautiful home like it was already hers. I screenshot the photo, saved it. I had a feeling I'd need it soon. Diana woke around 8. I showed her the Instagram post. She stared at it, her face hardening. Then she looked at me and nodded once. Firm, decided. We spent the rest of the evening watching old movies, peaceful in our room, while the party raged outside. Around 11 o'clock, people started leaving. By midnight, the house was quiet again. I lay next to Diana in the dark, listening to Ashley and Tracy stumbling to bed, drunk and happy. Tomorrow, they'd sleep in probably until noon. They'd wake up lazy and satisfied, thinking they'd pulled off the perfect Christmas. And then their phones would start ringing. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. By 6:15. George's letters would be delivered electronically. One to Ashley, one to Tracy, one to the trust company, one to the realtor authorizing the listing to go live. At exactly 6:03 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Ashley, I silenced it. It rang again and again. Tracy calling, more buzzing. Text messages piling up. I let Diana sleep another hour, then gently woke her, got her morning medications ready, helped her sit up in bed. My phone showed 84 missed calls between Ashley and Tracy. 84. I made coffee. Checked on Diana, took my time. At 7:30, I finally picked up my phone and called Ashley back. Dad, she was screaming. Actually screaming. What did you do? What did you do? Good morning to you, too, sweetheart. Merry Christmas. Don't you dare. I got a letter from some lawyer. It says the house is in a trust, that I'm not a beneficiary, that it's being sold. I could hear Tracy in the background, his voice raised, angry, demanding to know what was happening. Yes, I said calmly. After your call the other day, I did some thinking. You were right, Ashley. It is too much for your mother and me to stay here. All these stairs, the maintenance, the space we don't need. So, I've made arrangements for us to move into a senior living community. The house goes on the market today. You can't do that. This is our home. Our home. There it was. Actually, it's my home. Mine and your mother's. But we won't need it much longer, so I've decided to sell. But what about us? Where are we supposed to live? The sheer audacity of the question almost made me laugh. I imagine you'll find an apartment. I've given you 18 months of free housing. I'm sure you've saved quite a bit, knowing, of course, that they'd saved nothing. That Tracy had gambled it all away, and Ashley had spent it on things for a future that was never going to be hers. Tracy grabbed the phone. Listen, old man. Careful, I said, my voice dropping to ice. I have cameras throughout this house. Every conversation you've had, every disrespectful comment, all recorded. Would you like me to play them back, or should we skip straight to the part where you figure out your next move? Silence. Then the line went dead. I looked at Diana. Her eyes were bright, alive in a way I hadn't seen since before her stroke. She made a sound that was almost a laugh. Through the bedroom door, I heard Ashley crying, Tracy shouting, chaos erupting in the house that had been so full of celebration just hours before. I checked my phone again. A text from George. All letters delivered. House listed. Trust established. You're bulletproof. Another text. This one from Margaret Chen. Listed at 9 a.m. Already have 3 showings scheduled for tomorrow. This property will move fast. I showed Diana the messages. She squeezed my hand so hard it almost hurt. In the living room, I heard Tracy call a lawyer. We'll fight this. The old man's senile. We can prove it. Ashley through tears. But what if we can't? What if he really did this? The moment of realization. The moment when the mark understands they've been played. In sales, we called it the drop. That instant when confidence becomes panic. When control slips away. When you realize the person you thought was weak was actually 10 steps ahead the entire time. I'd seen it in boardrooms across Texas. Hospital executives who thought they were negotiating from strength, only to discover I'd already locked in their competitors. Procurement directors who believed they were playing hardball, not knowing I'd been speaking with their bosses for weeks. And now my own daughter and son-in-law sitting in my living room. Finally understanding that the doddering old man they had been manipulating was the one who'd been running the game all along. It was the best Christmas present I'd ever given myself. The phone calls didn't stop. Over the next hour, Ashley and Tracy tried everything. Anger, tears, bargaining, the 5 stages of grief compressed into voicemails and text messages. I sat with Diana, showing her each message as it came in. Some of them were almost funny. Tracy, We had a deal. You can't just change everything. What deal? The imaginary one where they got to steal my house while I was still breathing. Ashley. Dad, please. We can talk about this. I'm your daughter. Your only daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? It did. Once before she laughed while her husband called her mother a vegetable. Around 9, they showed up at our bedroom door. I'd been expecting it. Ashley's face was blotchy from crying. Tracy looked like he hadn't slept, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. We need to talk, Ashley said. Come in, I said. Diana and I were already dressed, sitting together, united front. They stood at the foot of our bed like defendants, awaiting sentencing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dad, Ashley started, her voice breaking. I don't understand. Why would you do this after everything we've done for you and Mum? Everything you've done, I repeated slowly. Tell me, Ashley, what exactly have you done? We moved in to help. We've been here for 18 months, helping with Mum with the house. You've been living here rent-free for 18 months, I corrected. You've eaten our food, used our utilities, taken over our space. As for helping with your mother, I looked at Diana. When's the last time Ashley took you anywhere, spent time with you, actually helped with anything? Diana held up her hand, made a 0. Ashley's mouth opened and closed. Mom's condition is complicated. I didn't want to do something wrong. Patricia manages just fine, I said. 3 times a week she comes in and does everything you claim is too complicated. The difference is, Patricia gets paid. You just get to live here for free. Tracy stepped forward. Look, we can work this out. You're upset about Christmas. I get it. But selling the house, that's extreme. Ron, you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years. I stood up, walked to my desk, pulled out the leather notebook. December 18th. I overheard you on the phone discussing retitling the house in January. You called me the old man who's going to kick the bucket soon. You called Diana a vegetable who doesn't understand anything. Tracy's face went pale. Ashley looked like she might throw up. December 20th, I continued. I found your casino receipts in the truck. Tracy. December 21st. Ashley. I saw your online shopping carts. Furniture for the new house. My house. The one you were planning to take. You were spying on us. Ashley's voice rose. I was observing people who were plotting against me in my own home. There's a difference. I pulled out my phone. Opened to the recording app. Would you like to hear some of the conversations my new security system captured? I have some particularly good ones. Tracy explaining to his brother how they'll have full control by February. Ashley telling her friend that she's just waiting for me to do everyone a favor and have a heart attack. Ashley's hand flew to her mouth. I didn't. I was joking. I was upset. You were planning, I said. Both of you. And now you're upset that I planned better. Tracy's face went from pale to red. You manipulative son of a careful, I said quietly. Remember where you are, and remember that I'm recording this conversation. 2. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Here's what's going to happen, I said. The house sells. Diana and I move to a senior living community, where she'll have proper care, and I'll have peace. The proceeds from the sale, along with my retirement funds and life insurance, are all in an irrevocable trust with Diana as the primary beneficiary. A professional trustee manages it. You have no access, no claims, no control. But what about us? Ashley's voice was small, childlike. Where are we supposed to go? The same place you were going to send your mother after I died. I said anywhere but here. I watched the realization settle over them. The full scope of what they'd lost. Not just the house, but the insurance money, the retirement accounts, the inheritance they'd been mentally spending for months. All of it gone. Ashley sank to the floor, her back against the wall. Tracy stood frozen, his fists clenched. You have until the house sells to find somewhere else to live, I said. I'm told that should be 4 to 6 weeks, given the market. I suggest you start looking. This isn't over, Tracy said, his voice low. Dangerous. We'll fight this. We'll get a lawyer. You're not in your right mind making decisions like this. We'll prove you were coerced. By whom? I asked. Myself. The attorney I hired. The doctor who certified my complete cognitive competency 3 days ago. I picked up a folder from my desk. It's all here. Medical records. Psychiatric evaluation. Video of me signing documents, clearly stating my intentions. You're welcome to try to fight it. You'll lose and you'll spend money you don't have on lawyers who will tell you exactly what I'm telling you now. You have no case. Ashley was crying in earnest now. How could you do this to your own daughter? The question hung in the air. How could I? I thought about the answer. About $43,000 for a wedding, where the groom contributed nothing. About Thanksgiving, when Diana sat dressed and ready, only to be abandoned. About wheelchair being called clutter. about vegetable. About 18 months of neglect disguised as help. How could you do this to your own mother? I asked quietly. Ashley didn't have an answer for that. They left. The door closed behind them, and I heard their voices in the hallway. Tracy's angry muttering. Ashley sobs. I sat back down next to Diana. Her good hand found mine, squeezed hard. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. Really smiling. 84 missed calls, I said. You'd think they could have called 85 times. Make it an even number. Diana made a sound that was definitely a laugh. Small, halting, but genuine. The first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. We sat there holding hands, listening to the chaos unfolding in what used to be our peaceful home. Ashley and Tracy packing, arguing, making frantic calls to lawyers, to family, to anyone who might help them. But nobody could help them, because this wasn't a case of an old man being taken advantage of. This was a case of an old man who'd spent 40 years reading people, understanding leverage, and closing deals. And I just closed the biggest deal of my life. December 27th arrived with unexpected complications. I'd expected anger. I'd expected desperation. What I hadn't expected was strategy. Tracy left early before I woke up. Ashley was in the kitchen when I came down for coffee, and she looked different, composed. Her eyes were red but dry. Her posture was straight. Dad, she said carefully. I talked to a lawyer last night, Dennis Morrison. He specializes in elder law. Of course. She did. Good for you. He thinks we have a case. He says that establishing a trust and selling your house within days, right after Christmas, suggests undue influence. He thinks you were pressured by your attorney to make these decisions. I sip my coffee. Interesting theory. We're filing a motion to freeze the trust pending investigation, and we're requesting a full psychiatric evaluation, independent this time, not one arranged by your lawyer. She said it calmly, confidently, like she'd rehearsed it. This was different from the hysterics of yesterday. This was Ashley fighting back, using the system, finding her own leverage. I had to admit, I was almost impressed. You're welcome to try, I said. But you should know that every action you take is being documented. Every legal filing, every claim you make. When this is over and you've lost, all of it will be part of the public record. Your friends, your employer, everyone will see exactly what you tried to do to your own parents. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, but she held firm. Dennis says, that's a risk we have to take, because if we don't fight, we lose everything. You've already lost everything, I said gently. The question is whether you want to lose it with some dignity intact, or whether you want to drag this through the courts and lose that. 2. The kitchen door opened. Tracy walked in with a man I didn't recognize. Mid-40s cheap suit briefcase that had seen better days. This must be Dennis Morrison, the bargain basement lawyer they'd scraped together money to hire. Mr. Parker, Morrison said, extending his hand. Dennis Morrison, attorney at law. I represent your daughter and son-in-law. I didn't shake his hand. I know who you are. Morrison smiled. It wasn't friendly. I'll be brief. My clients believe you've been unduly influenced by your attorney to make decisions that aren't in your best interest, or the interest of your family. We're prepared to file motions to freeze your trust and request a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. File whatever you want. We'll also be requesting access to all communications between you and George Kennedy for the past month. We believe there's evidence of coercion. There isn't. We'll let the court decide that. Morrison pulled out a document. This is a notice of intent to contest. I'm serving you formally. You have 10 days to respond. He set the paper on the kitchen table like he was playing a winning card. I picked it up, glanced at it, set it back down. I'll forward this to my attorney. He'll respond appropriately. You should know, Morrison continued, that contested trust can take months to resolve. During that time, the house sale will be frozen. You won't be able to move. You'll be stuck here with your daughter and son-in-law while this plays out in court. Ah, there it was. The real threat, not that they'd win, but that they'd make the process as miserable as possible. Trap us in the house with them. Make our lives intolerable. Hope that we'd cave and give them something just to end it. It was actually a decent strategy. If I were a different person, it might have worked. I'll manage, I said. After Morrison left, Ashley and Tracy looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to crack, to offer a compromise, to show weakness. Instead, I went to my study and called George Kennedy. They've hired a lawyer, I told him. Dennis Morrison. They're threatening to contest the trust. Morrison, George laughed. I know Dennis. He barely passed the bar. Lost his last 3 elder law cases. He's cheap because he's not very good. They're claiming undue influence. Of course they are. It's the only play they have. Let me ask you something, Ron. Did you want to establish this trust? Absolutely. Did I threaten you or coerce you in any way? No. Did you understand what you were signing? Every word. Then they have nothing. I'll draft a response. In the meantime, I'm moving up the psychiatric evaluation. We'll have an independent evaluator at your house tomorrow morning. Dr. Richard Foster, one of the most respected geriatric psychiatrists in Texas. He'll conduct a thorough assessment, and his report will be unimpeachable tomorrow. Speed is our friend here, Ron. The faster we establish your competency with an independent expert, the faster their case collapses. I hung up, feeling better, but the day wasn't over. That afternoon, I found Tracy in the garage on his phone again. He was speaking quietly, but I caught fragments. The old man's dug in. Yeah, he's got everything protected. No, I don't think we can. Maybe if he saw me and hung up quickly. Planning your next move? I asked. Just talking to family, of course. I started to leave, then paused. Tracy, out of curiosity, how much do you actually owe? I've seen the casino receipts, but I'm wondering about the full scope. His face went hard. That's none of your business. Actually, it is because when you were planning to put this house in your name, those debts would have followed. Liens, judgments, creditors. The house you were trying to steal would have been seized by the people you owe money to. Did you tell Ashley that part? His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I turned to leave. You think you're so smart, Tracy said behind me. You think you've won, but there are other ways to fight, ways that don't involve lawyers. I turned back slowly. Are you threatening me? I'm saying that old people have accidents, falls, medical emergencies. Things happen. The garage suddenly felt very cold. If anything happens to me or Diana, I said quietly, if either of us has any kind of unexplained accident or medical emergency, George Kennedy has instructions to immediately contact the police and provide them with recordings of this conversation and several others. You'd be the first suspect. And with your financial desperation and the documented motive, you'd be the only suspect. Tracy's face went from angry to pale. I wasn't serious. I was just upset. I'm recording this conversation, too, I said. Would you like to clarify that statement for the record? He didn't answer, just stood there, caught in his own trap. I left him in the garage and went to check on Diana. She was working with Patricia on her exercises, pushing herself harder than usual. Patricia noticed it too. She's determined today, Patricia said, more engaged than I've seen her in weeks. She has something to live for, I said. We both do. That evening, Ashley came to our room alone. Her face was stir with tears again, but this time they seemed genuine. Dad, she said softly, please, can we just talk? Really talk? I gestured to a chair. She sat. I know I messed up, she said. I know Tracy and I took advantage. We shouldn't have talked about you and Mum that way. We shouldn't have assumed. She trailed off, wiping her eyes. Where were you on Christmas? I asked. When your mother was crying. When we were alone in this room. Where were you at the party with Tracy's family having the best Christmas ever? She flinched. I didn't mean it that way. The caption was just. I saw the photos. Ashley, you weren't thinking about us. You weren't missing us. You were celebrating in our house, pretending we didn't exist. I'm sorry. Are you sorry that your plan didn't work? She looked at me, and for a moment I saw the little girl who used to climb into my lap when she was scared. But that little girl was gone. Had been gone for years. Both, she said finally. I'm sorry for both. At least it was honest. Your lawyer will lose. I told her the trust is solid. The house will sell. You and Tracy need to start planning for your future. A future that doesn't include living off your parents. I don't know how, she whispered. Then you'll learn, like everyone else does. She left quietly. No arguments. No bargaining. Just acceptance. Finally settling in. In the hallway, I heard her talking to Tracy. His voice raised, angry, her voice low, defeated. The alliance starting to crack. I closed the door and sat with Diana. Outside our window, Austin lights twinkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there was the future we'd built, protected, secure. And in this house, the past was finally dying. January Eid arrived with perfect timing. Susan Cole knocked on our door around 10 o'clock in the morning, carrying a plate of cookies. She'd always been good about checking in, but today felt different, purposeful. Ron, she said, could I speak with Ashley for a moment? I have something I think she should know. I invited her in. Ashley was in the kitchen looking haggarded. The legal battle wasn't going well for them. Dr. Foster's independent psychiatric evaluation had declared me completely competent. Morrison's motion to freeze the trust had been denied. The house sale was proceeding. Ashley, dear, Susan began, settling into a chair. I've been debating whether to tell you this, but I think you should know. Last week, I saw Tracy meeting with some men by the driveway. They didn't look friendly. One of them was showing him documents, pointing at the house. Tracy looked scared. Ashley's head snapped up. What men? I don't know their names, but they had that look. Debt collectors, maybe. Or lawyers representing creditors. They kept saying things like, "You need to pay and we can't wait much longer." Ashley turned to look at me. I met her gaze steadily. "Dad." Her voice was small. "Do you know anything about this?" I stood up, went to my study, and returned with a manila folder. I'd been waiting for the right moment. This was it. "I do, actually." I set the folder on the table in front of her. "Open it." Her hands trembled as she lifted the cover. Inside were credit reports, bank statements, casino receipts, collection notices, all with Tracy's name. All adding up to $75,000 in debt. Ashley's face went through a remarkable transformation. Confusion first, her brow furrowing as she tried to process the numbers. Then disbelief, her mouth opening slightly. Then realization, the color draining from her cheeks like water from a bathtub. Finally, horror as the full scope hit her. 75,000. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Gambling debts, mostly," I said. "Some credit cards he maxed out. A few personal loans from questionable sources. He's been juggling payments for over a year. That's why he was so desperate to get this house in his name." "I don't understand. Why would he want the house if he has debts?" "Because he's not very smart," I said simply. "He thought he could use the house as collateral for more loans, buy himself time. What he didn't realize is that in Texas, those creditors could have placed liens on the property. Within 6 months of getting the house in his name, they would have foreclosed. You would have lost everything." I watched her process this. Saw the moment when she understood that Tracy hadn't just been using me and Diana. He'd been using her, too. "There's more," I continued. Page 12. The timeline of his gambling. She flipped through, found the dates. Her hands started shaking harder. "These go back to years," she said. "Before we moved in here. He was in debt before you ever came to live with us. That's why you moved in. Not to help with your mother, to escape his creditors and plot a way to steal assets he could leverage." Ashley looked like she might be sick. "He told me we needed to save money for a down payment. He needed somewhere to hide while he figured out his next con. And you were the perfect cover. The devoted daughter, helping her aging parents." Susan quietly excused herself. This was family business now. Ashley sat there staring at the documents, tears streaming down her face. But these weren't tears of manipulation. These were tears of genuine betrayal. She'd been used just like I had. The difference was she'd been complicit in using me first. The front door opened. Tracy walked in, stopped when he saw Ashley at the table, saw the folder open in front of her. "What's that?" He tried to sound casual, but his voice had an edge of panic. $75,000, Ashley said quietly. "That's what? $75,000 in gambling debts you never told me about." Tracy's face went through its own transformation. The forced smile cracked. His eyes darted to me, then back to Ashley. His jaw tightened. "How did you get those?" he demanded, looking at me. "I'm good at finding things when I need to," I said. "I had a researcher pull your credit history, track your casino activity, contact your creditors. It wasn't hard. You're not as clever as you think you are. You had no right. I had every right. You were planning to steal my house to cover your gambling debts. I needed to know what I was dealing with." Tracy turned to Ashley. "Baby, I can explain. It's not as bad as it looks." "Not as bad." Ashley's voice rose. "You owe $75,000. We don't have $75,000. We don't have $7,500. That's why we needed the house. If we could have gotten it in our names, I could have what? Lost it to your creditors. My father's house. The house my mother lives in." The realization was beautiful to watch. Ashley finally understanding that she'd been a pawn in Tracy's game, just like I had been. That his desperate need for the house wasn't about building their future. It was about escaping his past. "You used me," Ashley said, her voice breaking. "You used my parents. You made me turn against my own father because you needed to cover your gambling debts. It wasn't like that." "Get out!" Ashley screamed it. Actually screamed. I'd never heard her voice reach that pitch. "Get out of this house. Get out of my life." Tracy looked at me as if I might intervene. I just watched, silent, satisfied. "Ashley, please," I said. "Get out." He grabbed his jacket from the chair. Looked like he wanted to say something else. Thought better of it. The door slammed behind him. Ashley collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I sat down across from her and waited. After several minutes, she looked up at me. Her face was red and blotchy. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked young again, vulnerable. I'm so sorry, Dad, she whispered. I'm so sorry for everything. I know. I let him turn me into someone I don't recognize. I let him make me forget who you and Mom are. What you've done for me. Yes, you did. She flinched at the honesty, but didn't argue. The house is selling, I said gently. Your mother and I are moving to a community where she'll have proper care. That's not changing. But Ashley, you need to understand something. This isn't just about Tracy. You made choices, too. You laughed when he called your mother a vegetable. You planned with him. You celebrated on Christmas while we stayed in our room alone. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I hate myself for it. Then learn from it, grow from it, build a life that's yours, not dependent on what you can take from other people. She nodded, wiping her face with her sleeve like a child. I've sent copies of these documents to Morrison, I added. He'll withdraw his motion today. The legal challenge is over. Good, she said quietly. It should be. You were right to protect yourself and Mom. I just wish, she trailed off. Wish what? I wish I'd been the daughter you deserved. I stood up, started to leave, then paused. You still can be, just not in the way you thought. February arrived with unseasonably warm weather. The house sold for $455,000, $5,000 over asking price. Two families had gotten into a bidding war over it. Apparently, a well-maintained home in our neighborhood was a hot commodity. George Kennedy handled the closing. The money went directly into the trust, where it would fund Diana's care for the rest of her life, and mine, too. The senior living community was called Riverside Gardens. And it was nothing like the depressing nursing homes I'd always imagined. Spacious apartments, gourmet dining, a full medical staff, therapy facilities. Diana would have her own room with a view of the park and the Colorado River. She'd have professional physical therapists working with her daily. She'd have dignity. Moving day was February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia helped us pack. Ashley came by, too quietly helping where she could. Tracy was gone. She'd filed for divorce on January 10th, citing his fraud and financial deception. He hadn't contested it. Where will you go? I asked Ashley as we packed up the kitchen. I found an apartment in small, but it's mine. I got a job, too. Administrative assistant at a dental office. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. Good. She carefully wrapped one of Diana's favorite teacups. Dad, I know you don't owe me anything, but could I visit Mom sometimes at Riverside Gardens? I considered this. Diana deserved to make that choice herself. Ask your mother. We went to the bedroom where Diana was in her wheelchair, Patricia helping her organize medications. Ashley knelt down in front of her mother. Mom, she said softly, I know I don't deserve it, but could I visit you sometimes at your new place? Diana looked at her for a long moment. Ashley held her gaze, tears streaming down her face. Then Diana slowly lifted her good hand and touched Ashley's cheek. A simple gesture, not quite forgiveness, but not rejection either. Ashley sobbed, pressing her face against Diana's lap. Diana's hand rested on her daughter's head, gentle, sad, but present. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet, but it was a possibility. A maybe, which was more than Ashley had earned. But Diana had always been kinder than me. The move itself went smoothly. Professional movers handled the furniture we were keeping. The rest went to charity. I watched as they loaded boxes into the truck, dismantling the life Diana and I had built in that house. But I didn't feel sad. I felt free. Susan came by to say goodbye. You did the right thing, Ron, she said, hugging me. Both of you deserve peace. We're going to find it, I said. At Riverside Gardens, the staff welcomed us warmly. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor, corner unit. Diana's room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the park. When the movers wheeled her to the window, she made a sound I hadn't heard in years. Pure joy. That first evening, I sat with her on our private terrace, watching the sun set over the river. The air was cool but comfortable. Inside, I could hear the faint sounds of other residents, laughter from the dining room, life happening all around us. Diana's good hand found mine. She squeezed. I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The pot roast evening when I'd overheard Tracy's phone call. The 84 missed calls on Christmas morning. Ashley's face when she'd seen Tracy's debts. The moment Diana touched her daughter's cheek in forgiveness, I couldn't yet feel. 84 missed calls. I said aloud, you know, I've been thinking about that. I should have let it go to 85. Would have been a rounder number. Diana made that sound again, the one that was almost a laugh. Her shoulders shook slightly, her eyes bright with humor. Then again, I continued, maybe 84 was perfect. Nothing about this situation was neat and tidy. Why should the number be? Her grip tightened on my hand. Agreement. Below us, In the park, I could see couples walking, families with children, young people jogging, life in all its messy, complicated glory. And up here, Diana and I had found our place in it. Not the ending we'd planned 42 years ago when we'd gotten married, but an ending that was ours, protected, secure. Tracy was working 2 jobs now, trying to pay off his debts. Ashley was learning to support herself for the first time in her adult life. They'd lost the house, the inheritance, the easy life they'd been counting on, but they'd gained something too, whether they realized it yet or not. The chance to build something real, something earned rather than stolen. As for Diana and me, we'd lost our house, but we'd gained our peace, our dignity, our future, secured against people who'd seen us as marks rather than family. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Diana leaned her head against my shoulder, as much as her condition allowed. I put my arm around her. "We're going to be okay," I said. "Better than okay." She squeezed my hand again. I felt her smile against my shoulder. For the first time in 3 years, since the stroke had stolen half her body and forced us into dependence on people who didn't deserve our trust, Diana felt safe, protected, home, and I felt like I'd finally closed the most important deal of my career. Not a sale, but a salvation. Not a transaction, but a transformation. From victim to victor, from used to user of my own skills and knowledge, from passive to powerful. The old man who was supposed to kick the bucket had kicked back instead, and in doing so had saved not just his own life, but the life of the woman he loved. I looked down at Diana. Her eyes were closed, peaceful. The stress lines that had creased her face for years had smoothed. She looked younger, somehow, lighter. "Happy Valentine's Day," I whispered. Her hand squeezed mine one more time. The best Valentine I'd ever received. Below us, lights began to twinkle in the park. Inside, dinner would be served soon. Tomorrow, Diana would start her physical therapy sessions. Next week, Patricia was coming to visit. Life was moving forward, and we were moving with it. Finally, after 3 years of treading water while parasites tried to drown us, the apartment behind us was warm and welcoming. The future ahead was secure and protected, and the past, with all its betrayals and pain, was finally, blessedly, behind us. I smiled, watching the stars begin to appear above Austin. 84 missed calls, the number that changed everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.